Welcome to Starlight Sci-Fi, where humanity shines brightest among the stars. Join us as we explore tales of courage, wonder, and the indomitable human spirit in the cosmos. Buckle up, it's time for an unforgettable journey. In the vast expanse of space, humans were underestimated. Seen as newcomers in a galaxy ruled by ancient empires, we were mocked and dismissed until the day we unearthed a secret buried deep within a forgotten alien ruin. What we discovered changed everything. The Galactic Conclave was a shimmering beacon of interstellar unity, a gathering of the most ancient and advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Its vast assembly halls floated above the surface of Hilarion Prime, a planet of crystalline skies and golden oceans, a fitting seat for the galaxy's elite. The Conclave was not merely a place for diplomacy, it was a symbol of power, a testament to the long and storied histories of its members. For thousands of years, the same species had dominated its chambers, their banners etched with millennia of triumphs. Then came humanity, the newest and most unremarkable addition to the Conclave. Compared to the ancient empires, humanity was a child stumbling into the halls of giants. The elder species looked upon Earth's representatives with a mix of amusement and disdain. Humans had only recently discovered faster-than-light travel, a milestone that the others had achieved so long ago that they considered it primitive. Humanity's ships were functional but uninspired, their technology pieced together from scavenged designs. They lacked the elegance of the Quarren, the brilliance of the Al-Shari, or the mysticism of the Yvran. For years, humans were treated as little more than a curiosity, a novelty to be tolerated but not taken seriously. They were given a seat in the Conclave not because they had earned it, but because the charter dictated that any species capable of interstellar travel could join. Their presence was a concession, a symbolic nod to the idea of inclusivity, though no one truly expected humans to contribute anything of value. In the grand chamber of the Conclave, humanity's delegation was always relegated to the outermost rows. The prime seats were reserved for the great powers, their representatives draped in regalia that spoke of their civilization's long and storied pasts. The humans, in their simple uniforms, seemed laughably out of place. When humanity attempted to speak, their words were met with polite indifference or outright mockery. The elder species had little patience for their optimism, dismissing it as naivete. Humanity's short history was a common punchline. How could a species that had only just left its cradle understand the complexities of galactic politics or contribute to the wisdom of the Conclave? The disdain was palpable, yet humanity endured. They listened, observed, and learned, quietly absorbing everything they could. What the elder species failed to understand was that humanity thrived in adversity. Earth's history was one of perseverance against impossible odds, of finding strength in the face of scorn. While the Conclave laughed, humanity watched and waited, biding their time. Beneath the ridicule, there was an unspoken fear among the elder species. They had all started as the underdog, overlooked until they rose to power. Humans might seem unthreatening now, but history had taught them that small sparks could ignite great fires. For now they mocked humanity, keeping them in the shadows. But the humans, with their boundless curiosity and stubborn resilience, were already looking to the stars, plotting a future that no one could predict. Little did the Conclave know, humanity's greatest strength was about to reveal itself, hidden in the ruins of an ancient world. Far from the bustling centers of galactic civilization, in a remote star system that barely registered on any map, a team of human explorers made a discovery that would change everything. The mission had been routine, another search for resources to fuel Earth's growing presence among the stars. The barren moon orbiting a gas giant had seemed like an unlikely candidate for anything remarkable. Its surface was lifeless and cold, battered by eons of meteor impacts and cosmic radiation. Yet, as the team's scanners probed deeper beneath the icy crust, they detected something unusual. It was a structure, enormous and unmistakably artificial. Buried under kilometers of ice and rock, it defied any known architectural style. The team quickly realized this was no mere artifact. It was a relic from a time so ancient that it predated not just humanity, but every civilization currently part of the Galactic Conclave. The excavation process was slow and dangerous, but humanity had always been adept at overcoming obstacles. After weeks of work, The entrance to the structure was revealed a massive archway carved from a material that gleamed like liquid metal, yet was harder than any substance humans had ever encountered. The carvings on the archway were intricate, patterns of geometric precision that seemed to shimmer and shift depending on the angle of light. Inside, the ruins were a labyrinth of vast halls and chambers, their walls covered in inscriptions and symbols. The air was heavy with a faint hum, as though the structure itself were alive, waiting for someone to awaken it. At the center of the largest chamber, the explorers found what appeared to be a control console, though its design was incomprehensible. Surrounding it were towering obelisks etched with an alien script. The language was unlike anything the team had encountered before, a complex interplay of symbols that seemed to follow no discernible pattern. Initial attempts to translate it were futile, even with the help of advanced AI. Galactic linguists who were brought in from the Conclave were quick to dismiss the inscriptions as meaningless. They claimed the ruins were the remnants of a primitive civilization that had risen and fallen long before the galaxy's current powers had taken shape. To the elder species, the ruins were nothing more than a curiosity, a footnote in the history of the galaxy. They mocked humanity's fascination with the site, ridiculing the explorers for wasting time on what they saw as ancient gibberish. But the humans were not deterred. There was something hauntingly familiar about the symbols, something that stirred a deep, almost instinctual recognition. Researchers back on Earth began to study the inscriptions obsessively, cross-referencing them with everything in humanity's cultural and historical archives. What they found was startling. The alien language bore strange resemblances to the oldest human languages, ancient tongues like Sumerian, Proto-Indo-European, and even older linguistic roots thought to have been lost to prehistory. The realization sent shockwaves through the research teams. These were not the remnants of a forgotten alien race. These ruins and the language inscribed within them might hold the key to humanity's own distant origins. What began as a dismissed curiosity was quickly becoming humanity's most important discovery. And while the rest of the galaxy scoffed, humanity pressed forward, determined to uncover the truth hidden in the frozen depths of that forgotten moon. The ruins on the icy moon had become the focal point of humanity's collective efforts. Back on Earth and across its colonies, the brightest minds were working tirelessly to decode the alien inscriptions. What had started as a scientific curiosity had evolved into an obsession. The more they studied the symbols, the more it seemed that the language wasn't entirely foreign. There was an almost spectral familiarity to it, as though it whispered to something buried deep within the human subconscious. Linguists, anthropologists, and cryptographers pored over the inscriptions day and night. Advanced AI systems ran millions of calculations, comparing the symbols to every known pattern in human and alien languages. At first, there was no breakthrough. The symbols seemed maddeningly complex, their arrangements defying conventional linguistic structures. Some researchers began to wonder if the language was designed to be deliberately opaque, a message meant to remain unreadable. The turning point came unexpectedly. A historian named Dr. Eliza Carden, specializing in proto-languages, noticed a peculiar rhythm in the inscriptions, a cadence that reminded her of early human linguistic theories. The way the symbols were arranged bore a striking resemblance to the structure of Proto-Indo-European root words, one of the oldest reconstructed human languages. The realization was electrifying. Humanity's oldest languages had no known external influences. They were thought to have developed independently. Yet here was a language, crafted by an ancient alien civilization, that shared striking similarities. The implications were staggering. Could the origins of human language, and perhaps humanity itself, be connected to this long-extinct species? This discovery renewed efforts, with researchers pulling in every fragment of ancient human linguistic data. The more they studied, the deeper the connections ran. The inscriptions didn't just resemble Proto-Indo-European, they also shared elements with Sumerian, Sanskrit, and even the symbolic traditions of ancient cave paintings. Patterns emerged, revealing that these languages might not have been as isolated or spontaneous as humanity had always believed. The idea was almost too incredible to accept. Humanity's earliest ancestors may have had contact with this alien civilization. This wasn't just a relic of a forgotten race, it could be a link to humanity's own forgotten past. As their understanding grew, the researchers began to reconstruct fragments of the language. Basic phrases and meanings emerged, revealing hints about the purpose of the ruins. The inscriptions spoke of something vast and ancient, a catastrophe that had wiped out the builders of the structure. They referred to themselves as the architects, describing a great war against an enemy that had consumed entire star systems. Yet the inscriptions weren't just a warning, they were also a guide. Hidden within the language were instructions, layered in complexities that only those who could understand the symbols could decipher. The structure itself, it seemed, was not merely a ruin. It was a repository of knowledge and power, left behind for those who could unlock its secrets. The discoveries were shared with the Galactic Conclave, but the elder species dismissed them outright. To them, humanity's findings were the ramblings of a species desperate for validation. They mocked the humans, accusing them of fabricating connections to ancient myths. But humanity wasn't seeking validation, they were seeking answers. With each decoded fragment, they drew closer to unlocking the full potential of the ruins. They couldn't have known that their success would send ripples through the galaxy, awakening forces that had been dormant for eons. The language of the architects was more than a relic of the past, it was a key to the future. And humanity had just begun to turn the lock. The ruins were no longer just an archaeological site, they had become humanity's obsession. Every symbol, every carved line, and every faint glow of the ancient structure was scrutinized, analyzed, and debated. What had initially seemed an indecipherable relic of a forgotten age was now becoming a bridge between humanity and a civilization lost to time. Through painstaking effort, humanity's brightest minds pieced together fragments of the language. It wasn't just a language, it was a system of thought. A way of encoding knowledge so intricate that only those with the determination to truly understand it could wield its power. The inscriptions weren't merely decorative, they were instructions, a guide left behind by the architects for a purpose yet unknown. The breakthrough came when the researchers reconstructed a key phrase, a series of words repeated throughout the ruins. When spoken aloud, the symbols on the walls began to glow faintly, as though the structure itself was listening. The hum that had been faintly audible before grew louder, resonating through the chambers with an almost musical tone. It was a language of activation, a means of interfacing with the technology left behind by the architects. The team's cautious experiments grew bolder. Using the reconstructed phrases, they activated sections of the ruins that had remained dormant for eons. Holographic displays flickered to life, projecting images of star systems, celestial events, and unfamiliar alien species. Massive obelisks lit up, their surfaces rippling with lines of energy that seemed to pulse in response to the humans' voices. The most startling discovery came when they unlocked a central console deep within the ruins. As the deciphered phrase was spoken, the console projected a message into the air, a series of images, sounds, and symbols that, when pieced together, formed a narrative. The message was a warning. It spoke of a war unlike anything humanity had ever imagined. The architects, once the dominant force in the galaxy, had been driven to the brink of extinction by a relentless enemy, a biomechanical swarm that consumed everything in its path. The ruins were not a monument to their glory, but a desperate attempt to preserve their knowledge. The message also revealed the true purpose of the ruins. They were a weapon, or perhaps a shield designed to protect against the swarm. But it was incomplete, requiring activation through the language of its creators. Only those who could speak the language and understand its nuances could wield the technology. As humanity delved deeper into the ruins, the signal they had inadvertently activated when the structure came online began to spread. Unbeknownst to them, it reached across the void, triggering sensors and long-dormant systems in distant parts of the galaxy. Something ancient and hostile had heard the call. When the message was shared with the Galactic Conclave, it was met with disbelief and derision. The elder species dismissed it as yet another example of humanity's hubris. Their claims of deciphering the architect's language nothing more than desperate attempts for attention. But humanity knew better. They had seen the truth etched into the walls of the ruins and heard the echo of the architect's voices in the symbols they spoke aloud. And when they fully activated the ruins for the first time, they felt the structure come alive around them. Energy surged through the ancient systems, and the moon itself seemed to hum with a power that had been waiting for millennia. The galaxy might have laughed at humanity's efforts, but something was stirring in the dark. The ruins were not just a relic of the past, they were the key to surviving what was coming. For the first time, humanity understood that the language of the architects was not just a tool for communication. It was a weapon, and they had just learned to wield it. The message from the ruins, carefully reconstructed and translated by human researchers, was a revelation. It told a story of unimaginable scale, a galactic civilization that had risen to dominance only to be annihilated by a relentless, biomechanical swarm. The architects, whose language humanity had painstakingly deciphered, had once been masters of the galaxy. Their achievements had reshaped the stars, their knowledge so vast it bordered on omniscience. Yet even they had fallen. When the translated message was presented to the Galactic Conclave, humanity expected awe, maybe even gratitude. After all, this was a warning, a glimpse into a past that none of the elder species had ever uncovered. Instead, the reaction was one of cold, dismissive silence. The grand hall of the conclave, always a place of pomp and ceremony, was eerily quiet as the recording of the holographic message played. The intricate star charts, the images of celestial cities falling to ruin, and the haunting symbols of the swarm flickering across the projection drew no applause, no acknowledgement. The elder species, with their regal postures and flowing garments of authority, exchanged uneasy glances but said nothing. Humanity's representatives were confused. They had expected questions, debates, even excitement. But what they encountered instead was palpable tension, as though the elder species were staring at a ghost. It was only later, during private conversations with some of the less prominent species in the conclave, that humanity began to piece together the truth. The language of the architects, the symbols they had so painstakingly decoded, was not entirely unknown to the elder species. It was a dead language, whispered about in myths and ancient tales, a relic of a civilization long believed to be fictional. The Precursors, as the architects were sometimes called in the legends, were the stuff of myths. Their ruins, it was said, were scattered across the galaxy, but no one had ever been able to unlock their secrets. The elder species, secure in their power and ancient traditions, had buried these myths under layers of denial. To acknowledge the Precursors as real would mean confronting the fact that even the mightiest civilizations could fall. And now humanity, the upstart species they had mocked for decades, had not only found a precursor site but had deciphered their language and activated their technology. Worse, the warning humanity uncovered spoke of an enemy so catastrophic that even the architects had been powerless to stop it. The conclave's silence wasn't just disbelief, it was fear. The elder species had long since erased the precursors from their collective memory, treating them as little more than bedtime stories. But deep in their archives, the oldest records told of the precursors' downfall and of the swarm that had consumed them. The ruins humanity had activated were not a treasure, they were a tomb, and the signal humanity had unwittingly sent out could awaken horrors best left undisturbed. Publicly, the conclave dismissed humanity's findings as fabrications, a desperate attempt to elevate their status among the galactic powers. Privately, however, panic spread. The elder species held secret meetings, their representatives arguing over how to handle the situation. Some wanted to shut humanity down, forbidding further exploration of the ruins. Others argued that humanity might succeed where they had failed, that the so-called primitive species might hold the key to surviving what the precursors could not. The humans, unaware of the full extent of the conclave's fear, continued their work undeterred. With each fragment of the language deciphered, they uncovered more of the ruin's secrets. It became clear that the site was more than a message, it was a beacon, designed to awaken and coordinate other precursor technologies scattered across the galaxy. And somewhere in the cold void of space, the signal from the ruins found its mark. Far beyond the reach of the conclave's power, something ancient stirred. For eons it had slumbered in the dark, a mindless swarm of machines waiting for a sign. The conclave could not ignore the truth any longer. Humanity had uncovered something they had long tried to forget, and in doing so they had reignited a danger that could consume the galaxy once more. Yet for all their fear and arrogance, the elder species missed one crucial fact: humanity wasn't afraid. The humans didn't cower at the sight of a challenge, they faced it. And for the first time, the Conclave saw that the very thing they had mocked, the resilience of humanity, might be the galaxy's only hope. Far beyond the bounds of the Galactic Conclave's influence, the signal from the ruins pierced the infinite darkness of space, its reach extending across light years. It was an echo of the ancient architects, encoded in the language they had left behind. For countless millennia, the signal had been dormant, waiting for a voice that could speak the dead tongue and awaken its purpose. Now, for the first time in untold ages, the voice had come. Deep within the heart of a long-forgotten star system, where no life dared to dwell, something stirred. Vast monolithic structures, dormant for eons, flickered to life. Their surfaces, black as obsidian, shimmered with lines of red light that pulsed like the heartbeat of a giant. Machines awoke, their skeletal forms shedding the dust of millennia as they reactivated with mechanical precision. The swarm had been called. The ancient signal had not just awoken the swarm, it had also reactivated precursor artifacts scattered across the galaxy. On barren moons, hidden beneath the surfaces of gas giants, and entombed within asteroid fields, forgotten relics began to hum with energy. These were not weapons in the traditional sense. They were defensive technologies, remnants of the architects' desperate attempts to hold back the tide. Back on Earth, humanity's researchers were beginning to understand the full scope of what they had done. As more of the ruined systems came online, they revealed maps of the galaxy, pinpointing the locations of other precursor sites. Each site was marked with symbols that seemed to indicate its function: power generators, data repositories, communication hubs, and, most ominously, containment zones. The containment zones were the most chilling discovery. These were places where the architects had fought their final battles against the swarm. The inscriptions described them as prisons, but the researchers quickly realized that the term was misleading. The zones weren't designed to imprison the swarm, they were meant to isolate it, to buy time for a weapon that had never been completed. Humanity scrambled to piece together the ruins' fragmented knowledge, but the task was overwhelming. Every new discovery raised more questions than answers. Why had the architects failed? What exactly was the swarm? And most importantly, could humanity succeed where their predecessors had not? Meanwhile, the Galactic Conclave watched from afar, paralyzed by fear and indecision. The elder species, for all their wisdom and technological prowess, had grown complacent over millennia of dominance. The idea that the swarm could return, that humanity might have unleashed an existential threat, was unthinkable. Yet they took no action, choosing instead to wait and see if humanity could resolve the crisis they had unwittingly ignited. But humanity was no longer waiting for the Conclave's approval. As precursor sites across the galaxy reawakened, humans mobilized their fleets and scientific teams. They were no longer a fledgling species, mocked and dismissed. They were explorers, engineers, and problem solvers, driven by the knowledge that they had inherited a fight, not of their choosing but one they could not ignore. The first real test came when a signal was intercepted from one of the containment zones. A human scout ship sent to investigate found the remnants of an ancient battlefield, its surface littered with the skeletal remains of precursor ships. Among the ruins, however, were the unmistakable forms of biomechanical constructs. The swarm. The constructs, dormant but intact, began to stir as the humans approached. It was as though their presence had triggered a response, reawakening the swarm's purpose. The humans barely escaped with their lives, returning with data that confirmed their worst fears. The swarm was intelligent, adaptive, and relentless. The Conclave continued to do nothing, paralyzed by internal squabbles and the arrogance of their belief that humanity's actions could never affect them. But humanity didn't need their help. They knew the stakes, and they knew they were on their own. As the swarm stirred and ancient defenses came online, humanity faced an impossible task: to finish what the architects had started, to unlock the full power of the ruins, and to prepare for a battle against an enemy that had once brought the galaxy's greatest civilization to its knees. But humanity had one advantage the architects never did: resilience born from a history of struggle. They had been dismissed, mocked, and underestimated, but now they were stepping into their role as the galaxy's unlikely defenders. As the first human fleet prepared to head toward the nearest active containment zone, the words etched into the ruins echoed in their minds. We left this for those who will come after. If you can read this, you are our legacy. Speak our language. Finish our fight. The galaxy didn't know it yet, but humanity wasn't just fighting for their survival. They were fighting for everyone, even the civilizations that had turned their backs on them. And this time, they wouldn't stop until the tide turned. The galaxy held its breath as humanity prepared for what was coming. The swarm, silent, mechanical, and relentless, had begun its reawakening, triggered by the signal humanity had unknowingly sent. Across countless star systems, ancient containment zones destabilized, releasing fragments of the enemy that had once consumed the architects. The vast, biomechanical machines, both elegant and monstrous, were stirring, their purposes cold and unchanging as the void itself. Humanity had no illusions about the task ahead. The warnings etched into the ruins of the architects were clear. The swarm could not be reasoned with, bargained with, or contained for long. It was a force of pure consumption, a predator of civilizations that assimilated and obliterated everything in its path. The question was not whether the swarm would come, it was how humanity would respond when it did. The Galactic Conclave, fractured and indecisive, offered no aid. Some elder species had gone silent, retreating to their fortified homeworlds, while others convened endless debates on whether humanity should be stopped or supported. But humanity no longer cared for their approval. They had learned long ago that waiting for help meant waiting for extinction. The ruins of the architects became the centerpiece of humanity's efforts. The moon that had once been a frozen tomb was now a living hub of activity. Engineers, linguists, and soldiers worked side by side, decoding more of the language and unlocking secrets buried deep within the ancient structure. With every fragment of knowledge they uncovered, they adapted it, transforming the technology into something uniquely human. The ruins themselves seemed to respond to their efforts. As humans spoke the dead language of the architects, the walls glowed with greater intensity, and more systems came online. Defensive grids were restored, star maps were updated, and ancient weapon schematics were revealed. These weren't ordinary weapons, they were planetary shields, energy cannons capable of piercing through the swarm's defenses, and fleets of automated drones designed to intercept the enemy. The architects had built these tools in desperation, and now humanity wielded them with purpose. But it wasn't just technology that humanity brought to the fight, it was creativity. The architects had been brilliant, but their solutions were rigid, bound by their structured way of thinking. Humanity, by contrast, thrived in chaos. They modified the Precursor designs, combining them with their own innovations to create weapons and strategies that even the architects might never have conceived. The first true battle against the swarm came sooner than expected. A containment zone in a distant system collapsed entirely, releasing a fragment of the enemy. What emerged was a fleet of biomechanical ships, each one a fusion of organic and machine, pulsating with life and death in equal measure. Humanity met them head-on. The human fleet, bolstered by Precursor technology, engaged the swarm in a brutal conflict that tested their resolve and ingenuity. The swarm was unlike any foe they had faced. It learned, adapted, and evolved with terrifying speed. Yet humanity held its ground, not through brute force alone, but through relentless adaptability. Where the architects had faltered, humanity persevered. They anticipated the swarm's movements, countered its strategies, and used its own nature against it. In one daring maneuver, a human captain lured a swarm fleet into the gravity well of a dying star, trapping it in a cataclysmic supernova. It wasn't just a victory, it was a statement. Humanity was no longer the weakest species in the galaxy. They were fighters, survivors, and problem solvers who thrived when the odds were stacked against them. Word of humanity's success spread across the galaxy, and the elder species began to take notice. For the first time, the Galactic Conclave reached out not with demands or derision, but with cautious offers of assistance. The irony was not lost on humanity. The same species that had laughed at their ambitions now sought their guidance. But humanity's focus was not on pride or politics. They understood the stakes better than anyone. The swarm was vast, and what they had fought so far was only a fraction of its full strength. This wasn't a war that could be won in a single battle. It was a marathon, a test of endurance that would span generations. As the humans pushed deeper into the Precursor ruins, they found one final message, a recording left behind by the architects themselves. It was not a warning, but a plea. We failed, but you must not. If you have come this far, then you have the strength we did not. The swarm will return, but so will hope. Carry our legacy forward. Survive. Humanity had inherited a fight they did not start, but it was one they would finish. They were no longer just the newest species in the galaxy, they were its shield and its sword. The galaxy had once mocked them, but now, as the stars trembled with the echoes of war, it began to see them for what they truly were. The defenders, the builders, the survivors. The swarm was coming, but humanity was ready. The architects had left a legacy, and now, it was in human hands. The galaxy's future had found its new custodians, and this time the light of civilization would not fade. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the stars. If you enjoyed this story, like, share, and subscribe to Starlight Sci-Fi for more tales of humanity's triumphs in the cosmos. Until next time, keep looking to the stars because that's where our destiny lies.